Welcome to the Phil Vogel podcast. I'm Phil, and this is my podcast, and the only show focused on dealership mergers and acquisitions. Why M&A, you ask? Well, that's because it's what I do. I do dealership buy-sells with car dealers. Most often it's a broker role, but quite often I'm a dealership wingman. And because I've been there and done that, never leave your wingman. So as a third generation car dealer in San Francisco and around the Bay Area for many years, I literally grew up in this business. My family's been in the business since 1934 when my grandfather, a Depression era mechanic by day and entrepreneur and hustler by night, became a Chevy dealer. And I've been advising dealers and selling car dealerships ever since I sold the last of our stores to Lithia in 2002. So on the podcast, we're going to discuss important and trending issues that matter to dealers, actual transactions, okay? We're going to talk about growth strategies, succession planning, valuations, and technology, corporate image programs, compliance matters. We're going to talk with legendary car dealers and discuss public and private group acquisition strategies. They're very different. OEM relationships and more. And then during our commitment to you and our mission is really to add value to every show and have an awesome audience experience and just have a great time so we can share great content and have great guests for you. So before I introduce today's guest, I'd like to thank and also introduce you to the show's title sponsor, the law firm of Arent Fox. Arent Fox is the nation's leading dealer representation legal firm in the country. I've done many transactions with their attorneys, and I can personally speak to their abilities and high quality of representing their clients' work. Flat out, they are awesome. You don't hear too many people say that about law firms, but they are. Arent Fox provides legal representation to companies that are revolutionizing the industry. Dealers, distributors, technology companies, electric vehicle manufacturers, private equity firms, they all find their way through our industry's legal maze with the expertise of Arent Fox. Arent Fox has got offices in Washington, D.C., New York, Boston, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. They have over 35 attorneys that specialize in dealership buy-sells and real estate transactions, compliance matters, franchise laws, and technology issues, and more. No deal is too big and no deal is too small for Arent Fox. Their lawyers have done over 500 dealership buy-sells. They've represented their clients in civil court against manufacturers as well as the New Motor Vehicle Board against manufacturers. Simply, there is no other law firm in the United States that is more committed to the automotive industry than Arent Fox. So here's what you need to do. Call Aaron Jacoby. He's the leader of the firm's automotive group. So write this down. Grab your pen. I'll wait. His direct number is 213-443-7568. That's 213-443-7568. Or you can email Aaron Jacoby at aaron.jacoby@aaronfox.com. That's aaron.jacoby@aaronfox.com, or just give him a call, aaronfox.com. Okay, so now it's time to introduce our guest, Amit Chandarana. He is the Senior Vice President of Roadster. He's in charge of sales and business development for the company. And he's focused on the valued relationships of industry partners, OEMs, and enterprise dealer groups. Previously, and he's been there for several years, and I'll let him tell you a little bit more about his journey there, but he also headed up product marketing for Edmunds.com. He was the head of marketing for Fiat Chrysler, and he spent 17 years at Toyota Motor Sales in various sales and marketing positions. And he's a graduate of Cal Poly Pomona down in Southern California, and has a master's from St. Mary's College in Moraga, California, which is right across the bay from me. So without further ado, welcome, Amit.
Hey, Phil, thanks. We should definitely add long walks on the beach after that.
Long walks on the beach. Absolutely.
It sounds too
And
easy that way.
and I have to say this, he is a lifelong Dodgers fan. So there you go.
Yeah, I
So
figured
hey,
I'll
Amit,
just start the podcast by creating enemies.
that's a good idea. Good idea. Well, certainly up here in San Francisco, you got an enemy in me. So, but we'll have a spirited dialogue nonetheless. So, uh, I'm very familiar with Roadster, Amit, and digital retailing, and we'll get more into the detail as the show goes along. But I'd really appreciate it if you share with our audience and viewers what Roadster is all about, and then we'll get into it here.
Sure, no doubt. Roadster is an omni-channel commerce platform, more widely known probably in our industry as a digital retailing platform. So ultimately, we have digitized the entire sales process that is somewhat analog and
Right.
antiquated in our industry for over the last 40 or 50 years. We sell it as a software, and we license this technology to car dealerships, large dealer groups. We also have partnerships with manufacturers in the US and globally. And I think one of the cool things about Roadster, if you were to go back to its history, is we use the technology to begin back in 2013 and 14 to sell cars directly to customers. So it earned a lot of street credit because we were able to proof positive the technology from the get go.
Very cool. Yeah. So we'll get more into the details about this. I have to ask you, since we're right on the heels of NADA, our virtual NADA. So how was NADA for you guys virtually?
Very different. Look, I think we're I think the fact that we are all missing out on the opportunity to sharpen knives. Remember how much we used to complain about those things a year ago? March 13th is when we really pivoted the way that we operated as a company. But we complained a lot about these conferences and the networking and some of those things. I think we all miss it tremendously. I think the inertia and the momentum that you gain from there, the best practice sharing, the hallway conversations, we realize now that those are real, especially in this industry, which is still a very almost incestuous small industry, right? So we
Yeah.
certainly miss it. We tried to do as much as we possibly could to make it valuable to our dealer partners and to our own associates about how to learn and get better. But we can't wait to get back in front of our dealer partners and OEM partners.
Yeah. No, I think that it was I mean, were you guys able to do some business during it, or was it pretty much was it a good plus business, or was it a wash?
Yeah, it's certainly not the type of business from a standpoint of awareness and leads and things of that nature. We do have some offers out there that are coinciding, like a referral program. We also have a
Right.
special offer for Roadster that is taking place during an ADA, but it's certainly not the same impact that you would have when the dealers are there present and
It's a
mindful
very
about the concentration that they're focusing their efforts on when they're there in person.
Yeah, it was very very different in ADA. That's for sure. Hey, so I was reading in uh, Ward's Auto Dealer the other day, actually 2 days ago, and let me read you this quote, and it's from Bob Carter at Toyota. So he said, and I want to get your thoughts on this because I thought it was quite interesting. I think it kind of encapsulates where a lot of dealers' heads are and vendors right now. So he said, quote, digital and online sales will not replace dealer showrooms. Dealership facilities and the consumer relationship with the sales consultant and manager will always remain the most important things in this industry. This is a people business. It's people before product. So that's Bob Carter. So what do you think, Amit, about what he had to say?
Fundamentally,
40
I don't
years,
disagree with.
yeah, 40 years at Toyota, right? And a real dealer's
Yeah, no,
friend.
absolutely, no doubt. Look, I clearly, as you mentioned in your opening, I spent a lot of time working at Toyota. I've been in the same room with Bob. I think he's a really smart guy, and I don't fundamentally disagree with him in regards to showrooms going away, or the relationship between a salesperson and a customer going away. The most important thing between a salesperson and a customer is up to the customer. It's not up to me. It's not up to Toyota. It's not up to any manufacturer. The customer is going to decide what's most important to them. And I think that's the most important thing that we as an industry overall need to keep as a part of our decision-making process. I use a lot of comparisons and analogies such as the Starbucks app. The Starbucks app has really enhance the engagement I have with my barista, for the lack of a better term. I go in there and I don't spend the 3 minutes on the purchase process because I did that in the car on the way over or at home. But I still have that conversation with the person who made the drink, or the local individual in the Starbucks that still talks to me the way we used to talk back in the day, quote unquote. So I do believe that the salesperson will be more valuable to the customer because they can support the customer in their shopping process the way the customer wants to shop. But I do think we're going to see a fundamental shift in the way dealerships are built and the way they're designed. You're probably going to see more of a truncated footprint that is fixed operations based and display based. But I don't think most people want to spend 4 hours at a car dealership becoming best friends with somebody.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think Carter nailed it. But I think the one thing that, is not in that quote, that, I think we all would, not all, but I would agree with you, the omnichannel approach, right? I mean, meet the customers where they are. It's, I think for years, dealers try to get the customers to meet them where they were at, right? This is how we do business, and this is our process, and what have you. But now, with an improved experience and what have you, I kind of think that we're going to see this omnichannel thing. I totally agree with you about the footprint of the dealer and how dealerships are designed. There's no reason for dealers to have 5 acres of inventory sitting on the tarmac. It just doesn't make, or 10 acres or 20 for that matter, depending upon where you are and what have you. But I think meeting the customers where they're at, right? I mean, that just makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, I'll say 2 things to that. Look, as somebody who was a field manager for Toyota in the mid 2000s, we struggled with dealers even wanting to adopt websites, and dealers literally would say they weren't going to do it because they believed AOL was going to take over the whole world and there's no way they would be able to stay alive. I think you and I realize, you're deeply involved in this, that no dealership has ever shut down because they had a website. They might have shut down if they didn't have a website.
Right.
So number one, I think the efficiency of the marketplace, right? Customers need to have just as much information as the dealer because that is what makes it an efficient marketplace. The second generation of that is what you're talking about, is omni-channel commerce. You have to be able to let customers shop the way they want, but at the same time, make it comfortable that if they go back in store, they pick up where they left off, or vice versa. I want to start the process at the dealership and go home and discuss it with my partner about whether or not, I want to move forward with this process. And then I also think it's more about choice now than at any other time. If I am a dealer in a market where land is cheap and in an area where I can display 500 vehicles on the tarmac, that's my choice. But if I'm a dealer in downtown Los Angeles and it's impossible for me to go find 5 acres, then I should be able to use my digital footprint more effectively than not.
Yeah, and I think that certainly, the OEMs, I will tell you in my conversations, and this is something, and so dealers that know me, they've heard this story, but I mean, it is, the model is changing. And I, you and I haven't discussed this, but talking about the footprint and what have you, it's something I've been, talking about for a long time because, most of the business I do is in the Western US. I do some stuff on the East Coast, but, the Western US real estate's very expensive and there's some real challenges. But I think what you're talking around, this bespoke kind of interaction with a customer, right? Where you're online in the dealership, maybe taking delivery at the store, and then it's going to be different for somebody else, but you're giving the customer the opportunity to transact in a way that they're comfortable with. And it's not going to be the same for everybody. It's more of a bespoke, custom offering. It's interesting.
What's the statement that it's ubiquitously used, right? Think global, act local. It applies. And the other thing is, look, to be brutally fair,
or
we're
high
sort of
tech,
been in
high
the
touch,
industry.
right? Or high tech,
Yeah,
high touch.
high tech does not mean that you still don't have the ability to be very in tune with your customer. In fact, you probably add more value by being more efficient with your customer's time, right? We say this all the time. The most important thing that we all have in the world, can't get any more of, and we all have the exact same amount, is time. The more time you give back to a person in the shopping process, the more valuable the person you're doing business with becomes. And the last thing I'll say on this is, look, I'm not gonna give us a pass on this. I think in our industry we just make things so much more complicated than they are. Most of our dealer principals and executives at car companies wouldn't buy a car the way cars are sold today, or they were over the last several
Right.
years. That's just not the way they would shop themselves, and I don't know why we think customers should go that way also.
Yeah. So this show's focused on dealership mergers and acquisitions, and I'm curious as to and there's been a lot of activity in this area right now. I mean, there's a lot of activity in the buy-sell market. I don't need to tell the audience that. Everybody's pretty much aware of that. But I'm curious as to, on the stores that where your product, when Roadster's installed, whether it's on the website or they're using it in the store, and we'll talk more about that. But I'm curious as to whether dealers that have the sellers that are current Roadster customers, are the buyers, the new dealers, the new owners of the business, are they retaining the Roadster application? And if they are, what are you seeing? Is there, are they seeing the value of that?
Yeah, short answer is it depends. The layers below that onion are, it depends on some of the agreements. What you are clearly aware, and your audience is clearly aware, we're seeing a lot more larger dealer groups, publicly traded ones, scooping up smaller or mid-sized dealer groups. Oftentimes, the larger dealer groups already have a preferred vendor relationship. So in those situations, we do see some attrition. We do see some churn. We do see dealers that have been, maybe dealers have been loyal with Roadster, or they've actually found value, that often do have to, because of the buy-sell, move over to a different technology. We've also seen dealers who have been absorbed and scooped up by larger dealer groups, basically as a part of the negotiation state, that they wanted to stay with Roadster because Roadster's been that valuable to them, and it's become integral in their change management and their processes. So we've seen the gamut, we've seen the myriad of it. I think we've benefited more from the buy-sell activity because, not to be a homer on this, but I mean, we have really loyal dealer partners, and I think we add a lot of value to their operations and their footprint. And so therefore, as long as you deliver on your promise over and over, your dealer partners are going to stick with you.
So let's talk about the value. So, in terms of what can you share with the audience, and I'm curious myself as to, the customer, the KPIs on the customer experience and improved margins. What can you share with everybody about that?
Yeah, I will try not to go down too many wormholes here, but I want to give a very fair picture.
Sure.
One of the interesting things about Roadster and how we position itself is that, look, you've been in this industry a long time. I've been in this industry a long time. We stayed away from this line item that most vendors use in this business, which is, hey, we're going to help you sell more cars. We've always stayed away. In fact, we tell dealers up front, and I'm willing to say it publicly and privately, we're not necessarily telling any dealer that we're going to help them sell more cars. Let me tell you why. Number one, selling more cars has more to do with the retail operators, macroeconomic factors, OEMs, allocation systems, incentives, et cetera, than your digital retailing partner, your technology partner. So let's be clear. We stay in our lane. So therefore, we basically drove our narrative around three things. And by the way, the reason I also said that is, look at the SAR when the pandemic and a recession hits. Nobody is selling, quote unquote, more cars, but people are certainly doing things more efficiently, more profitably. So we've always stayed away from that. And it's kind of cool when the hypothesis actually, serves out.
Yeah, good timing. Very good timing.
Yeah. And go back, man. I mean, I've been on podcasts for 4 years. We said it back then, we'll say it today. But with that being said, let's talk about what the value we deliver. Number one, we state three things: engagement, efficiency, and satisfaction. So when you talk about KPIs and what not only Roadster, but all digital retailing should provide you is this. Look, car dealers and car companies spend millions and millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, driving people, customers, to their digital environments. But the conversion rate, as you know, in the industry is not very high. People that come to the website, not a lot of people actually engage in deep funnel activity. And the reason that happened, Phil, is that we as an industry made people go through this rigmarole of this lead-based economy, which just doesn't exist anymore. Just think about this for 2 seconds. Why do I go to a website where they show me multiple pictures of a vehicle, they have a price, they have a description, they tell me where it's located, et cetera, and then the only button on the website asks me to check the availability of whether or not that product I just saw is there?
Right.
How does it make any sense in the world for me to ask you if it's available? Maybe in 2005 it was a valid question, but today, if that product isn't available, then take it off the website, for God's sakes, because you update your inventory 4 times a day. So we flipped the script on this is about commerce, not about lead engagement. So number one, more engagement, more better. At the time that the customer is more comfortable, at the times when dealerships might not be open, et cetera, the on-demand economy. Excuse me. Then, so it was engagement. Then it was efficiency. We can talk about efficiency all day long. We could talk about cost of goods sold. We could talk about time efficiency, which is super important. Just think about how many people nowadays have to shop when you put your kids to bed or early in the morning. And if I can't shop during that time frame, I mean, I think Amazon would probably shut down. I need to be able to do it on my time. But here's another fantastic statistic, which has been accelerating. Our industry, and you know this, NADA, we've always measured the stick as a salesperson selling 10 units, 12 units per month, and that means the salesperson get to keep their job for another 30 days, right?
Right.
And that number hadn't changed for about 40 years. And we've done studies that are available even during COVID that we started to see the increase, more juice being squeezed out of the lemon. In May of last year, we started to see about 13 units per salesperson. We did the study again with NADA the fourth quarter. You're starting to see 16 plus units per salesperson. There's a lot of factors in that, but that is something that we knew we would start to see, is that you need to squeeze more juice out of the lemon. You need salespeople to let customers do more so the salesperson can have more of an output. Once we start unpacking the financial statement effects of that, cost of goods sales going down, more gross profit out of that, then you start to see higher levels of efficiency. And then last but not least, satisfaction, right? Not only dealer satisfaction, because they're actually happier when they sell more cars through less people and in a more efficient manner, but customers are way more satisfied. So here, I'll go back and just wrap it up. If you see more engagement, you're doing it more efficiently, and customers and dealers are more satisfied, will that tend to lead to more sales? Probably.
So I'm curious as to when a dealership group rolls out Roadster, do they roll it out enterprise-wide, or do they do it serially, meaning one at a time?
It depends on the dealership group. We have seen, when they're really large dealer groups that we work with, we've probably seen pilots and regionalization. So we've seen stores, vice presidents, area managers who are have more proclivity to absorb new technology and process change. If it's a group that is 3 or 4 or 5 rooftops, or maybe 8 to 10 rooftops, a lot of those will do it together just because of the sense of efficiency. I think we're at a different place of digital retailing than we were 4 years ago. We spent a tremendous amount of time educating the ecosystem on what digital retailing was to begin with. We are no longer spending as much time on educating on digital retailing. We're now educating on why it is so much better, why it's more efficient, why Roadster actually sets itself apart. And then, look, one more thing I will go back to that we are pretty broad and bold about. We're a technology provider, but yet once you sign up with Roadster, it's probably 20% technology afterwards and 80% change management. And so it really comes down to how dealerships adopt change versus how they're going to roll it out. Perfect
segue for my next question. So let's talk about dealership culture. So I've been always said, in advising dealers and talking about, one of the issues, is or things that I say, culture happens, whether you're doing it right or doing it bad. You got a culture. And I've seen many dealers try to go to a one price model, just overnight. We're going one price, and it's a failure. And in my opinion, it's because the culture hasn't been set. People don't understand why. And I'm curious as to, or why a dealer is doing it, and how does it impact everybody and everything at the store. And so I'm curious as to what your experience has been with dealers, culture, and Roadster, and rolling it out.
Yeah, we could spend 4 hours on this one.
Oh,
But
perfect.
let's
We
not,
got
right?
all day.
Yeah. So you hit the nail on the head. You're spot on in regards to, look, culture, whether or not it's in your own home or at your business operations, is really a long game, and it's organic in how you change it. So there is no doubt. But I think one of the approaches we have taken is we're very upfront about the fact that we tell every dealer, um, choosing a digital retailing software, we have some advantages. Some of our competitors have some advantages. It's super important. But making sure you decide to partner up with somebody that's going to be there to support the change management aspect of this is probably more important than just the software in and of itself. Some dealers
Yeah.
will throw that back in our face. Hey, man, you let us handle that, and you provide technology. And we say, great. So think about it. At Roadster, we have actual 5 levels of implementation. Everything from, hey, you want to just use this thing online to guide people through a sales process, all the way to full omni-channel in-store adoption to super users. What we have basically designed is that we take these 5 implementation levels, and we will tell you, we don't want you to be the best at all these, and not everybody needs to graduate through
Right.
all these. The most important thing for us is that once you decide what implementation level fits your culture, let's make sure you're the best at it. So we go deep on it. So it's about depth versus it is about breadth. And then as we build relationships with you, we can show you how to guide you through the steps to become more full omni-channel capable, et cetera, et cetera. The second thing I would say is, look, we've been in this industry a lot. We've learned a ton. We've failed a ton. So we love using those failures to basically reiterate the best practices. And one of the things we learned off the bat is that we need to find WIFMs, or what's in it for yous, for all of the different stakeholders throughout the dealership, right? Look, the owner, the
Right.
dealer principal, the general manager, those folks have a very long view from a customer standpoint, a profitability standpoint, or just not becoming dinosaur standpoint. That sales manager, also, we have a lot of WIFMs for the sales manager and then the salesperson. The one interesting thing I will say to you, that our field teams have basically given us, and we've validated for probably 3 or 4 years now. Principals, GMs, executives, they're all in on this. They get it. They do not want to become dinosaurs, and they know they need to evolve. Salespeople get it. They are actually, a salesperson knows how long they're going to be with a customer and how much money they're going to make when the customer's walking in. So they actually really love the ability to become more efficient, to be fair. Sometimes where we face more challenges is that middle layer of sales management. And I think that's because the way sales managers have evolved. You ask a sales manager, how many of them are actually managing an operation versus managing a person or a process, or desking deals, or typing numbers into a computer so it can spit out a payment. They're not managing processes. And so it's a jigger for them to have to change the way that they do business, rather than punching numbers into the DMS and coming out with a pencil, right? Or an AB, or whatever
Right.
you want to call it.
Sure.
They now have the ability to step back into this helicopter view and watch the sales process be digitized. They now have the ability to drive more customers through the process in the funnel. They have more ability to touch more customers. They now have the ability to train on process. And that's a change for a lot of our sales managers at the dealership. So I
Absolutely.
think the change management aspect.
I was going to ask, I mean, the next question I was going to ask you, really, what are some of the obstacles? And you touched on some of them, but I think, I mean, just at the dealer level, when you talk about change, when you're looking to change a process, it gets back to, like I was saying, the culture is one thing, but it all has to be, to your point about with them, what's in it for you and me, and what's but I think the job descriptions, I think compensation plans, I think that so many things need to shift to be keep everybody's interest in alignment, that I think a lot of dealers think they can shortcut that. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to go back to the premises of humans. We don't usually like change. You're in Northern California. I spent 9 years up there. I think we are all too comfortable with change and being Silicon Valley oriented and all that. Look, the reality is most of us actually don't like change. Take a different route to work every day and see how you feel.
Right.
So most of us probably don't like change, and in business operations, it all depends on the culture of the company. Like you said, like there are some that are autocratic and say we're going to change because we believe that it's what the top of the pyramid wants to do, and hell or high water, it's going to roll downhill and we're going to change. There are others that probably take a different approach, that evangelize and educate the frontline teams about why the change is super important. Our approach in how we kind of approach this or consult on this is making sure that we're very clear with the dealerships that, A, this is going to be hard. And if you're not willing to change, you're likely not going to be successful with this. But we have to be partners, right? Because we know that people don't like change. We have to give them the optionality of what level of change they want to engage in. That's why we have those different levels of implementation. But it's also our job to make sure that we make sure that they know that we're here to support them. We've done it. We've been through a bunch of these battles. I mean, 2,000 dealers almost, right? We've seen every flavor of change. We've seen hardcore resistance when we walk into a dealership implementing software, to open arms and say, hey, you guys help us with our sales process through and through and how we should even price vehicles. So I do believe the most important thing is the top-down buy-in. You have to have the leadership be bought in. They have to be present, and then they have to evangelize why this change is important to them. Because at the end of the day, Roadster's not going to be inside your dealership helping you sell cars every single day from a change management process. So it's got to be your own change, and we've got to help support that.
I'd like, before we wrap this up, and this has been a great conversation, but before we wrap it up, and I have another question for you. But how do people get a hold of you, Amit? What's the best channel? Tell me what are your digits and email, phone number, or handle it, Twitter, or whatever?
Yeah, I don't tweet much. I just poke on there every once in a while to see what people do. Easiest way is Amit at Roadster, or if you just go to roadster.com, you can reach out to any of us. But my email, Amit at Roadster, pretty simple and ubiquitous. You can reach out to us, and our teams are really fast about getting back. So am I. So anyone can get a hold of us there, or you can go directly to the Roadster website and follow and keep up with us there.
Right on. So I'd like to ask you, you were on a call before we got on this. And my last question is kind of doves into your call. So I'd like to share a little bit about your experience on that call. But what in your, here as we spend the last year in COVID, and I'm curious as to what you're seeing, what your perspective is in terms of what trends have accelerated to the point where we're going to, or where do we see things going? And I know we're on this call earlier, but I'm curious as to, after being in COVID, what other trends besides, the advent of an omnichannel and digital retailing, what do you see trending right now? Curious.
I think you alluded to one of them, so I'll start with that. I think you're starting to see a fundamental shift of the type of talent dealerships are going to attract. I think they need to find not necessarily younger salespeople, but they need to find process-oriented salespeople who might have wanted to take a job at the Apple Store or Best Buy, and know that now that a dealership is using sort of the science and the art of digital retailing and something that is very process-oriented, that they can attract a different type of dealership associate. Also, dealership associates that don't need to work bell to bell 7 days a week and kill themselves on month end. Folks that can actually do a lot of remote selling. So I think that's one trend that we're certainly seeing. If you were to level up macro, certainly starting to see a lot of the tierless integrations. So just so I'm clear on that, the blended, blurred lines between OEMs and dealers. I don't think the franchise agreement is going anywhere anytime soon, but I certainly think that OEMs are constantly fighting for mind share and brand share, and they want to make sure that if a customer, let's just say if you're shopping for a Mazda and you're on the 3, that if a customer is settled in on that, they should be able to go to the Mazda website, decide on the vehicle that they want, and continue the shopping process with one of their retailers without a ton of friction and hurdles. Right. So I think the tierless approaches are becoming more ubiquitous. In fact, I know, given the rooms that we're in and the conversations we're in, that that's starting to take place. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. The other trend I would sort of point to is this shift in conversational commerce, because as much as people are going more digital, they are also going more digital for assistance, right? We were joking around with some folks in our own internal calls the other day. I think what most people do when they go to the FAQ section of a website is search for where's the phone number so I can get the answer to my question.
Right, exactly.
It's not like I don't want to use your digital tools to be able to help me, but I want them to help me with a scalpel and not the big knife or a blowtorch, right? I want you to help me with exactly with what I need now, because we all live in a Google that world. So I think conversational commerce is going to be more helpful, right? I'm going through a sales process, and I want you to just guide me through this part, and I don't understand the question. So jump in and help me out, and then get out of my way so I can get back to doing what I want to do.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's a great way to wrap this up, Amit. And I think that you've done a great job in not just sharing what Roadster's all about, but really kind of giving our audience and dealers a peek of what your perspective is into the future and different trends. And I can't thank you enough for coming on the show, and really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us, and hopefully I was able to add some value. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great job. Thanks so much, Amit. And thank you, everybody, for watching the show. And we will look forward to seeing you next time on the Phil Vogel Podcast. See ya.